How is it going, everybody? I'm Jake Gibson, joined alongside my friend and co-host Kevin Barral, and well, we got a sampling of football, a little morsel of spring football as the Panthers. Navy team beats white team by an interesting score of 7-2. I think the absolute story of this game, Kevin, was without a doubt the defense and how amazing it looked on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was 6 total sacks between both teams. Honestly, four for team Navy, and then 2 for team white. 7-2 final score. Not a baseball game, folks. I promise you that.
Right.
I guess the only other slight concern, but Willie kind of mentioned it after that they hadn't done this too much in the stadium, which is the field goals. 0 for 4 on field goals combined between both teams. Outside of that, the defense definitely looked ahead of the offense, but I think there was a lot to like, in regards to a couple of the receivers. Eric Nelson Jr., a guy who I'm looking forward to just watching once again in the fall. Then you have the Hawaii transfer, Alex Perry.
Yeah.
Running back room, it kind of figured out more or less how they're going to split those reps. It's really looking like it'll be at some, combination of A.J. Allen, Keyshawn Owens with a little sprinkle, but not, a decent sprinkle of Devontae Lyons. But outside of that, liked what I saw. Key1 looked pretty good despite, not having his usual targets. And overall, it was a good spring game. Willie came out here and we had a good time. And a lot of people showed up and showed out. I was not surprised by the attendance, but, it was a good attendance for a spring game.
And the vibes were high, even before the game. Looking around, the students were getting into it right outside Panther Hall, man. And the vibes were pretty good. By the way, Coach Simmons spoke about the draft and how confused he was that white team said, you know what, we don't want Keyshawn Owens, A.J. Allen, Devontae Lyons. It created a pretty stacked running back room for the Navy team, and all things considered, I thought they looked pretty good.
Yeah, we also learned that Willie Simmons is a Lakers fan.
Yeah.
And he's a little salty about the Chris Paul trade veto.
That David Stern vetoed way back.
He said he was about to pull David Stern's move to have Devontae Lyons be on the white team.
That is crazy.
Because, the fact that they got all 3 running backs is impressive.
Insane.
But, yeah, look, it was good vibes from start to finish. Everyone was excited to see what this team would look like more or less. And I think we saw some good flashes, at least on the offensive side. The defense looks really good despite, some losses.
Yeah.
You lost the Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year in Travion Barnes, but you keep, you have a person, Courtney, who had a sack. Josiah Taylor, who ended up winning Most Improved, the linebacker this spring with the interception. The safeties look really fun. We have Webster Etienne. Didn't have a huge day, but still good enough. Demetrius Hill, former Panther, now back with the interception. Yep. Bobby Sala Jr. with an interception as well. That unit is going to be good. There's a lot of depth there. So good job there by Kenneth Gilstrap. And the corners look fun. Brian Blades, didn't hear his name called out today, but Victor Evans Jr. with 2 interceptions. That's a guy who's grown a lot this spring. And overall, at his time at FIU, he was a guy who last season we heard a little bit about, didn't hear too much. But at the end of the season, Anthony Gator's talking to us about Victor Evans Jr. and how that's going to be a guy. And he was a guy, and he's been a guy so far this spring. Outside of that, on the offensive side, the only other thing I want to note is just the lack of tight end usage.
Yes.
And that's something we saw, in years past. But again, this is a team that's going to run the ball a lot. They're going to run the ball a lot. And Willie made that clear. This team's strength at the moment, what he learned was that this is going to be a team that's going to run the ball. So you're going to need your tight ends to block, and they have some big dudes there. A couple tight ends dropped some passes. I think that was another big issue overall, just drop passes.
That one dropped pass from, I believe it was a tight end.
Braden Staten. Yep, exactly.
That would have been a touchdown.
Donovan Giles dropped one as well. The Pine Buff transfer. So overall, I liked a lot of what I saw, but still, there's a lot to work on. And it was only 5 weeks of spring. 14 practices, with today being the game. So now I'm going to take a month or 2 off, and then you're back at it for fall practice.
I mean, the score itself tells the story. The fact we had to wait that long for a single touchdown in this game was extraordinary for that defense. 7-2, that's 9 total points. The Braves dropped 10 last night. More points in that game than an actual football game. But speaking of actual football game, I am very happy we actually got to see a real deal full fourth quarter football game. I know they had some clock. They had a rolling clock in the third and fourth quarter, but the fact that we actually got to see a full football game, I think, is definitely an improvement over some of the previous spring events where they were just practices and scrimmages. You really couldn't get the full story there. Here we actually got to see who could actually be the starters in positions like offensive line, running back, stuff like that. They made some good answers today.
And they made it a little bit more engaging, which is always cool. Doing the draft a couple days before, having to adjust to who you're playing with, and that's something that Hawaii transfer Alex Perry, he's like, as bummed as I was to not have Keyone on my team, I still have Clayton Dees, and I'm going to need Clayton at some point this season.
Facts.
You never know what's going to happen.
Never know.
We saw it last season. Keyone went down, Shaden Perry had to step in there. So it also seems like Simmons did kind of solidify what the QB1, QB2 situation will look like with Keyone as the starter, Clayton backing him up. So again, I think it was good stuff overall. And quarterback play wasn't the greatest. Keyone had some really nice moments. Clayton, I think, just still trying to get into the swing of things. This is a guy who did not see a single snap last season, didn't get too many snaps last spring or even fall. He's going to get a lot more reps now, and he's going to play at some point this season. I don't know what type of role, but he'll play. Yeah,
I'm excited to see that backup QB battle and how it transitions to the first game of the season against Bethune-Cookman. Now, there were a few positions where it felt like the door was wide open for who could be the starters come day one. I think, too, I wanted to ask you about wide receivers and secondary. And when I say secondary, I mean linebackers specifically. We saw a lot of different players from both positions utilized today. Who do you think really won the award for best looking out of both those positions?
Well, wide receivers, Eric Nelson Jr. really had himself a day. He's someone that Alex Perry even mentioned, just like that's a guy who's really improved. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting on day one. That would be pretty cool. I don't know what it would look like because he could definitely be a slot guy, but then you have no Pierre. So, and then remember, Juju Lewis is returning now in the fall. So I'm curious to see what that looks like in the fall once they have a fully healthy unit. Linebackers, I think it'll be honestly Percy Courtney Jr. and Josiah Taylor. I think should be the starting tandem. But Willie mentioned Johnny Chaney, who he had at FIU for 3 years, went to Colorado, came back. That's a guy who's really stood out as well. Rocky number 0. He's a tall dude as well. Like I saw him the other day just walking the campus, and he's a tall dude. And he's good. So I think that's the room that's really improved the most per Simmons. So I'm excited to see how that continues to grow, not just throughout the summer and the OTA period once again, but then real practices in the fall. Now,
I think one position that left us with more questions than answers was the kicking position. Noah Grant, unfortunately, did not have a great game today, 0 for 4. I think there was an extra point made, obviously, following that touchdown. But beyond that, Coach Simmons talked about it. This is their first time kicking here at Pitt Bowl Stadium as opposed to the practice fields. It was pretty windy today. It wasn't howling, but there was definitely some noticeable wind. What was your take on that? Should this be something that we really might have to worry about come week one?
No, and that's something that Willie made clear. He just says it's going to take some reps. Those are two guys who have great legs, and for what it's worth and what I saw, they do. They have some they have some legs. Like they're going to kick it, and especially Noah Grant, the UAB transfer. So, now it's just a matter of let's do it more here at Pitt Bowl Stadium, which it seems like that'll be the plan, and let's get it going because they got to make those field goals. I mean, they left 12 points on the board between both teams. They went 0 for 4 on field goals. Obviously, you mentioned the extra point that was made after the touchdown. So, it was a little it was not concerning, but it was definitely a little stressful to see. And again, it's going to take reps. And this team, unfortunately, kickers don't get as many reps as you'd think in spring practices, but enough to, have made some field goals.
Yeah. So, now comes the long wait, Kevin. Over 100 days. I don't know the exact amount. Over 100 days until that week 1 Bethune-Cookman game. There's still so many questions left to be answered for the squad, but all things considered, if you had to pick an MVP for this game today across both teams, I think it'd be hard not to go with Victor Evans.
It's Victor Evans. I mean, 2 interceptions, the way he's just grown throughout his time here at FIU, and how much his name's been called on more and more is awesome to see. Josiah Taylor is another guy who really deserves some credit with the work he's put in. He was on special teams, played as a true freshman. Quiet name that we haven't mentioned, Jermaine Carter, Termite.
Yes.
And that defensive line had a sack on Keyone early on in the game, and he's someone who also played as a true freshman. And they're going to – him and Quayle and Hill and that interior line is going to be awesome to see it, and it's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah. By the way, I did feel nostalgic that Demetrius Hill interception. That took me back.
Cool.
That took me back seeing Demetrius Hill get a pick for the Panthers. So I think we'll leave it there. Now comes the inevitable suffering of having to wait until we finally we got baseball, La Tech, a doubleheader tomorrow now because of that rain out today, which I think was the best case scenario because we get to focus completely on this spring game. But until then, it's going to be a long time until that Bethune-Cookman game. But attendance I thought was pretty good. We got to see some former players. A lot of former players. Hard time, Johnu Smith and
Tiercar was out there.
Cyprian. Yeah, a lot of guys. That's always great to see for these events. And all things considered, I'm excited to see this Willie Simmons led Panthers unit once they're fully fledged out. Once we finally know who the starters are, we can look back on today and be like, okay, maybe these guys have maybe come a long way into those summer practices and then to the fall.
August 29th, baby. against Bethune-Cookman. I'm pumped. I can't wait.
We don't know the times yet. I'm hoping that's a night game under the lights here at Pitbull Stadium. Simmons gets to go against a team he used to take on a lot in his FAMU days.
And I was listening to a podcast that he was on the other day. And he said, I'm not going to say the names of my rivals. He can now, but he never said it on that podcast. And I was going to call him out for saying that. Yes. But I kept quiet and I asked a little more light question about the draft strategy. And again, he said this, and I'll say it again. Shout out, the creative squad for the work they put in. And unfortunately, no broadcast for this, but they had, Hunter was out there recording the whole thing, and we got some nice clips.
And we appreciate all you guys that have been following our coverage all day. That we posted a lot of stuff, you and I, on social media.
Probably the craziest week of the podcast.
I know this whole weekend has been insane, and we already have
episode 91.
Episode 91 is done. We're going to drop it next week. It's going to be fun sticking with football. Then we'll branch out a little after that, maybe. So until then, until our next broadcast, continue to follow our coverage. We're going to be going over both games tomorrow for La Tech, and then football's going to be here hopefully before you know it. Fingers crossed. So until then, this has been Jake and Kevin saying so long and Paws on.